Welcome back to the Limited Queue. I haven't really been posting a lot of videos lately because I've been really busy playing Paper Standard with this deck. I'm in love with it, it's so much fun. I have been putting up consistent, great standings and records with this. I've been playing in just about every tournament that I can with it. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I think that this deck is fantastic, and a lot of people are often overwhelmed and a little bit confused by what's coming at them. So I really like playing it. Now, on the surface, I'm going to tell you right now, I started out with Sam Black's Bant Tokens list. I think Sam Black is one of those builders that I've always identified with. Often the things that I'm thinking, he says, and about certain cards. He'll say that such and such is underpowered, so and so is underutilized. I usually agree with him on almost everything he says. When he comes out with a deck list, I like to take a look at it and see if it's something I agree with. It usually is, and then I'll even go in and make some changes myself to his list. And then very often he'll come out and say, "Okay, well, my next version of this deck, it involves these changes," and they're exactly the changes I would have made. So this is, at its core, this is Sam Black's Bant Tokens list. Now, what's missing is the B in that Bant. Blue ain't here, and but I did replace it with some other spice, and we'll get to that later. But let's start with what we're looking at here. Over here on the left column, we have 4 Silkwraps, 2 Stasis Snares, a Planar Outburst, and a Quarantine Field. These are your early interaction. I guess Planar Outburst not so much, but this is your early interaction. This is your removal. This is the way that you survive against a Tarka Red. This is basically what gets you to live long enough to really move forward with the process of this deck, which is going to be swarming and going wide and then punching in for a 60-point life swing. I promise you it happens, and you're going to love it. Just stick with me. Silkwraps, Stasis Snares, Quarantine Fields, and Planar Outburst get the job done. One change I might make about this removal package is I might change the 1 Planar Outburst into a 2nd Quarantine Field. And that has to do with the popularity of Gideon in other decks. Gideon is just Gideon and Jace are both incredibly difficult to deal with. If I can put in more ways to deal with that, I would be much happier. Stasis Snare is exile a target creature, not target permanent. So it only works on Gideon if they turn into a creature, which they don't often do, or though they meaning your opponent, and it doesn't work on Jace at all. So basically, your only main deck answer to Jace after he's morphed is Quarantine Field, and I think I would put 2 of those in. Elvish Visionary is a great 2-drop. It acts as a chump blocker when you need it to, and it cantrips and draws you a card. If you're in the super ultra late game mode, you've got 10 mana in front of you, drawing an Elvish Visionary is not the end of the world, because you drop him and then you have another shot at pulling something that's going to save your butt. And he acts as a chump blocker if you need him to. A lot of green decks are running Elvish Visionary right now as a way to transition from the early game into the mid game. It makes a lot of sense. I almost treat Nissa as another Elvish Visionary very often. For me, I have no problem dropping Nissa on turn 3. I'm very happy to do so. Just searching up the forest and making sure that I curve out into my important 4 and 5 drop spells is very, very worthwhile for me. Often, if I drop Nissa on turn 3, I will end up blocking with her before she morphs into at turn 7, as this deck is running 2 semi-ramp cards and Blighted Woodland down here, but we're not running a lot of ramps, so we're usually going to be dropping our 7th land on turn 7, and for a 2/2 to survive from turn 3 to turn 7 is pretty unlikely. So when you drop Nissa, you get your forest, you make sure you curve out in the early game, make sure you make it to the mid game, and then if you draw a second one, then that's the one that you're going to be flipping into Planeswalker. Now here is actually the meat and bones of the deck. This 3rd column is our token generators. At the top we have 3 Secure the Wastes. A lot of people are curious as to why the deck doesn't run 4, and the answer is because it doesn't need to. Secure the Wastes is a spell that you usually only have to cast once. I have seen versions of this deck that run Den Protector and then flip to recur Secure the Wastes. This way they can bang it out early for 2 chumpers if they need to, and then bring it back. I'm not a fan of that plan. I like the one-shot, one-kill thing. Secure the Waste only needs to be cast once throughout the deck. But Hangarback Walker I think it's pretty widely accepted that Hangarback Walker is not a game-finishing card by itself. In many instances, it is beneficial to the controller if Hangarback Walker actually dies. That's why Hangarback Walker is in the token generator column here. His function is not to deal damage. Hangarback's actual function in the deck is to die. So the quicker you can make that happen, and hopefully not to an Abzan charm, the better for you. And our final and possibly the most powerful, underrated token generator I've ever dealt with is Retreat to Emeria. Holy crap! If you want to swarm a board in like 2 turns for no reason and not tapping no mana, Retreat is the way to do it. If you get multiple retreats on board, there are 4 in the deck, then every land that you put down either gets you 2 1/1s, or it gets all your creatures +1/+1 until, +2/+2 until end of turn if you have 2 of them out. Now, if you actually put down a fetch land, that can give you any combination of 4 triggers of either a 1/1 dude or a +1/+1 to all your creatures. Holy crap! It might, even if right now, if you're not sold on it, try playing with it a few times. It is just, Retreat to Emeria has caused me to create a new term that I use when describing decks power level, and Retreat to Emeria causes resource fatigue for your opponent. Really, the fact that all you have to do is just put down a land and get a free 1/1 creature is really difficult for your opponent to deal with. Whether you're using that to chump block, whether you're using that to in an aggro fashion, whether you're using it for literally anything. If you at post sideboard, if you're sacrificing it to Evolutionary Leap, then you're getting card advantage. It's something for free. It's like that song, something for nothing, or what is that jingle? I don't know. It's really, really good. And so not only does Retreat to Emeria make every single card in your library a live card, it makes every single card in your library a threat, and it is a one-time investment of mana resources that will give you continuous benefits for the rest of the game, especially because there are very little enchantment removal spells active in Standard right now, other than Dromoka's Command, Utter End, and maybe Felwar Cub, and that's off the sideboard. So we have, these as our token generators. This is our swarm, this is our go wide in this column. Now this column here is Gideon and Archangel of Tithes. And you're probably going to ask me, why is Gideon in this column and not in the token generators? Good question. Same thing for Nissa. Why is Nissa not in the token generators? Because Planeswalkers make tokens, but that is not their primary function in the deck. Nissa's Ashaya is rarely going to be your finisher. It's rarely going to be that card that punches through for the final death blow. Nissa's function mostly in the deck is to give you card advantage and sometimes a 4/4. But it's not really a death. This is not your finisher. And same thing with Gideon. Gideon's token function is not going to be your finisher. Gideon's emblem ability is amazing. Animation effect is also amazing. I am surprised at how little. Of course, for every time I get Gideon down, I'll probably use the zero ability once or twice before I start animating him and then bashing in. Gideon is often my finisher, or he's my buff effect. The Anthem effect that you get with the emblem is amazing. Emblems cannot be removed, bounced to the hand, or anything like that as they sit in the commander zone. They're not actually in play. Things falling in and out of exile. The emblems in the commander zone are actually one of the few things in this format that go untouched. So it's one of those very, very rare, I'm going to call it like a diamond property ability, where once you have it, it's solid and it's not going anywhere, and you know that. And that makes it very, very useful, especially when you're spitting out dudes every turn with Retreat to Emeria. Instead of 1/1s, they're 2/2s. So Gideon does not belong in the token generated column because often I'm usually using him to either finish the game with his plus ability or using his Anthem ability as a buff. Another interesting buff that totally is underplayed in this format is Archangel of Tithes. Holy smokes, what a useful card. I don't know if anybody notices it, but just because there's a lot of pips up there doesn't mean that it costs more than 4, because it costs 4. This thing costs 1 more than Mantis Rider and has a way bigger butt with an ability that is game-breaking for some decks. You drop Archangel of Tithes on somebody and it just ties up every single decision that they have to make for the rest of the game involving combat. It's awesome. Archangel of Tithes, they can't cast spells because they have to anticipate what attacks that'll be coming back at them. It's like, if they tap out for a big creature, that means I can't block next, or it means they can't block next turn at all. That is a big reason to slow down and basically force your opponent to make incorrect decisions, or it forces your opponent to stall and wait for mana where they could cast their big creature and block, which by that time the game will probably be over. Archangel of Tithes really, really puts your opponent against the wall and then makes them drop the soap. I mean, wow. Okay. Now, maybe that one was too graphic. And then this last column over here, this is okay. Let's do the easy one first. Wingmate Roc. Wingmate Roc is, a lot of people say it's great, it's awesome. I had this conversation with a few people yesterday. I wanted to bring it to you guys here on YouTube. In my opinion, Wingmate Roc is a win more card. It's a good finisher, but it rarely helps you when you're behind. It can help you, like, yes, it can block Mantis Riders and things like that, but Wingmate Roc, I'm not always a big fan of this card. I'm kind of just putting it in there just kind of to say that it's in there because that's what people play a lot. The original list runs 3 of them. I don't like it. Yes, you get 6 power and 8 toughness for a total of 5 mana. I understand that concept is great. There's just something about it that bothers me. I gotta be honest with you. I'm just never a big fan of Wingmate Roc. But card I am a huge fan of is Whisperwood Elemental. It's similar to Retreat to Emeria. If Whisperwood Elemental is just left alone, you will basically win the game. Whisperwood Elemental is Standard's new green Goblin Rabblemaster, only better, because he comes with an awesome sack ability, and he doesn't force all your dudes to attack in the same turn, every turn. Whisperwood Elemental is really good because it forces your opponent to have a removal spell. You put down Whisperwood Elemental, and it's basically saying to your opponent, you need to either have a removal spell or draw a removal spell in the next 2 to 3 turns, or I'm going to win this game. That's how powerful Whisperwood Elemental is. And if you can do that for 5 mana, why the hell not? Now, over here we have our mana base, which is very similar to Sam Black's, except for one minor change. You'll notice I'm not running Prairie Streams. I'm also not running Lumbering Falls. And that's it for what's different in the mana base. And there's a good reason for that. Over here, that I have hidden from view, is our spice. Instead of running the blue that, in my opinion, the blue that Sam Black runs in his current Bant Tokens list is inadequate for the format. Running Dismiss is not a reason to go a third color. It's a cute little answer to Dromoka's command, which is what this deck needs because it has so many enchantments. I understand that. But at the same time, it doesn't do much else. Dismiss is an incredibly restricted card. It can only counter one type of one type of spell, and then I just don't like it in this deck. And like I said, other than countering either Utter End or Dromoka's command, Dismiss has no place in this, and I don't think it's main deck viable. The reason I could see it being main deck viable was in the meta that Sam Black built it for. Green-white Megamorph was crushing the scene, and when you're expecting to face a field of 60 to 70% green-white Megamorph, then sure, main deck Dismiss. I get that. But now that that's no longer the case, I don't think Dismiss is any good in this deck. Instead, I put in what I think is one of the most powerful and underrated cards in the format, Sorin. Sorin's flipping nuts. I'm gonna that's it. Originally I was looking at it and I was going to put in Ondu Rising in the deck because I'm actually going to quote Sam Black here when he said that every deck in Standard right now needs to have life gain if they want to consider winning. That's actually, in my opinion, an extremely true statement. The problem with that is that his life gain in the deck that he's running sucks. He's running Wingmate Rocs, and I think that's it. his Bant morphs, or sorry, his Bant tokens list, that's not enough life gain. Not for a format that has 10/10s flying around on turn 7. No, they don't. Yeah, Ulamog doesn't fly, but he does annihilate too when he comes into play. Got it. Gaining 6 or 7, gaining even 4 life per attack with Wingmate Roc, and then losing creatures trading off is not good enough for this format with 10/10s in it on a regular basis. It's just not. We got Dragonlord Atarka coming down on turn 5, and you're telling me that your turn that if you're on the draw, your turn 5 Wingmate Roc's going to save the day. It's not. What is going to save the day is dropping a butt ton of tokens on turn 8. So turn 8, I go 7 Secure the Waste tokens. I have a Retreat to Emeria out. So I already had 1 or 2 tokens. So now I have 9 tokens. I drop, I'm able to secure at the end of your turn. My turn comes around, I drop a fetch land, crack it, get a land. All of my creatures get +2/+2 from my Retreat to Emeria that I have out. So I now have 9 3/3s. I then play Sorin. I now have 9 4/3 lifelinkers. Win game. Just, at that point, you can basically just look at your opponent and go, uh-huh. What now? Are we really going to do this combat step? And they just go, oh, wow, you went wide. And they just scoop. There's just nothing else to do there. Sorin wins games. I have won so many games off the back of Sorin. I would be at 2 or 3 life. My opponent is at 18. And the next turn, they're dead. And I'm at 40. It's just insane. It's bonkers how good Sorin is. Not only does he generate 40-point life swings pretty easily in this deck, he also sticks around as a threat, and that's what makes him much better than Ondu Rising. He also has the ability to make his own tokens, which is perfect for this deck. It's exactly what we do. And in addition, instead of running Lumbering Falls as a blue source, we can run Shambling Vents as a black source, which is another option for lifelink, which is another option for gaining life. So it does make our splashing for black in a green-white deck does make our mana a little clunky. My 2 other black sources, other than the 2 Shambling Vents, are Smoldering Marsh, which can be searched with Wooded Foothills, and a Sunken Hollow, which could be searched for with Flooded Strand. Now, of course, these lands don't really help me get towards white in any way, which is a little bit gnarly at this point, because it doesn't help me out with Archangel of Tithes. So basically, other than providing searchable black, these 2 lands are colorless lands in the deck that do nothing. It can be a little frustrating at times, but in my opinion, the payout of winning games back, end over end over end over end, is so worth it. Sorin's insane. And plussing Gideon and then dropping Sorin, and then plussing Sorin gives you an indestructible 6/5 swinger. Plussing Sorin with, the turn after your Hangarback Walker dies is, whatever is coming your way, now you're coming back at it with 8 lifelink flying power. Sorin's amazing in this deck, and it's a little bit frustrating to me that nobody else is doing it because it's so good. Sorin is so good that at this point, earlier I was talking about running maybe a second Quarantine Field. I've also considered taking out the Planar Outburst and running a 3rd Sorin. Now, another interesting, cool little trick that can happen is Blighted Woodland, searching as an instant to activate Retreat Emeria, which people almost never see. Just getting that done before we can fade away from the mana situation here. What is cool about the deck is that it's running 11 fetches, Windswept Heath, Flooded Strands, and 3 Wooded Foothills, and it's only running 6 basics. Interesting, because we have a lot of things that search for basics. We have got the 3 Nissas and the 2 Blighted Woodlands. So I have had situations where I've tried to search for a basic and failed just because I had them all on the board. I don't think that that's a reason to put more basics in. I'm pretty happy with the way it works. So the essential of this deck is use everything to go wide, or actually maybe stall the beginning game and maybe the mid game, then burst open, go wide, with options like everything that's in column 3 here. Secure the Waste, Hangarback Walker, Retreat, and even Whisperwood Elemental. And then drop a Sorin and win. Either drop a Sorin and win, or drop a fetch land into Retreat of Emeria for +2/+2 to everything and win. It's extremely easy to drop 8 creatures, give everything +2/+2, and swing for 24 damage in this deck. Like, that is just the bare minimum of what you can do on turn 8 or 9. It's really easy. It happens often, and if you're behind, there are plenty of ways in this deck to get ahead. Or at least stabilize a little bit. Nissa gains you card advantage. Visionary replaces itself and acts as a chumper. Gideon is just one of those threats that when it comes down, people go, "Ay." And Whisperwood Elemental really has the ability to win a game by itself. Alright, so before we wrap this up, I just do want to visit the sideboard real quick. This is my sideboard as it stands. 4 Surge of Righteousness, 3 Valorous Stance, 2 Undergrowth Champion, 2 Evolutionary Leap, and 4 Den Protectors. Now we're going to go over why each card is here and when you want to swap them in. The 3 Valorous Stances are mostly there for Abzan. It gets rid of, it's my Rhino killer. On top, not that I take Silkwrap out, because I don't, but this deck has very few ways to deal with Rhino. The main deck, Stasis Snare and Quarantine Field, are there, yes. I rarely use the Indestructible Clause on Valorous Stance. It's basically there to kill Rhino. Done. Search of Righteousness comes in against Dark Jeskai and the Tarka Red. It also comes in against Abzan. Surge of Righteousness is basically a catch-all. I'm actually thinking about main decking it, except you leave it out for Green-White Megamorph. Undergrowth Champion, I think, is underlooked as a sideboard card because some people just dismiss it as being a terrible card to play against black. They're right. Undergrowth Champion is a terrible card to play against black. Black removal hoses Undergrowth Champion's awesome prevent damage and kill everything ability. So when do you bring in Undergrowth Champion? When you're not playing black. Playing against black. So basically, as long as your opponent's not playing Ruinous Paths or Murderous Cuts, Undergrowth Champion comes in, especially if you're being out-tempoed or being rushed in the beginning game. Especially bring in Undergrowth Champion against a Tarka Red. Polar opposite of Undergrowth Champion is Evolutionary Leap. You bring Evolutionary Leap in when you are playing against black. So if your opponent's playing instant speed removal, then you want to be able to sack your creature and get card advantage out of it. In comes Evolutionary Leap. Finally, you bring in Den Protectors against blue. Most notably, Esper control and Dark Jeskai control decks. Why Den Protectors? You bring in the Den Protectors to bring back the enchantments that your opponents will either counter or destroy with Utter End, Felidar Cub. The recursion on your removal makes it very good and gives you, puts more pressure on your opponent to deal with cards that you're putting on the board. Whew. This was pretty quick-ish, maybe. So, but this is the deck I've been playing, and I'm in love with it. I'm going to include a full list that you can copy-paste in the comments and description down below. If you have any suggestions of your own, please let me know. I think that's it. I've been crushing tournaments with this. I mean, we're talking top 2, top 4 finishes almost every time. And once you pick up the deck, it's pretty easy to catch on to the nuances as to, for example, in the beginning when you're searching for a land using Windswept Heath, you probably want to get a plains over a forest. Why? Because there's only 3 forests in the deck, and it's very easy for you to run out of forest to search with Nissa. That's an example of a nuance that you should pick up from playing the deck very, very quickly. I love this deck. I just really wanted to put up it's been a while since I put up a video. I needed to put up a reasonable explanation as to where I've been, and the answer is I've been playing this. So, yeah, if you liked it, leave a comment or suggestion, something down below. If you have anything to say, let me know. I'll probably write back. All right. Thank you for watching Limited Q, and I'll see you on the battlefield.